Welcome to MilSpouse Matters, the podcast dedicated to encouraging military spouses. I'm your host, Jen McDonald, and I was a military spouse for 30 years until my husband retired. We lived all around the world, raised 4 kids, and dealt with all the challenges and adventures of military life, just like you. Over the years, I came to believe that we military spouses are only stronger together. So whether you're a new or more seasoned spouse, whatever life is throwing your way, let's talk about it. Hello, and welcome to the MilSpouse Matters podcast. This is your friend, Jen. Before we get to today's amazing interview, I wanted to remind you that this month, November 2023, my 5-day deployment devotional is half off at my site. It is a digital download, and use the code November23 to get half off. Also, next week is the Pillar Online free deployment retreat, and just grab your seat. It's going from November 17th through the 19th. It's online, completely free, and if you can't make it, you can watch the sessions later. There's going to be so many amazing talks and help for you as you face a deployment. I will be speaking about relationships with in-laws, both from the perspective of a military spouse and a military parent. So make sure and just grab your free ticket to that. As well, remember that my new book, MilSpouse Matters, Sharing Strength Through Our Stories, is out. It is the stories of military spouses across the generations, a lot of my own story, and it will hopefully strengthen and inspire you as you are on your own military spouse journey. You can find it at the link in the show notes or at any bookseller like Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So check that out. Now let's get to today's interview with the amazing Charlynda Scales. I was so excited to meet her and get to talk with her, and she was very gracious to come last minute on the podcast in time for Veterans Day. She is a veteran, an amazing entrepreneur, and she just published her first book through W Brand Publishing called Rock Bottom Has a Trampoline. I think you're really going to enjoy hearing more from her and about her story and be inspired how you can come back from rock bottom too. So, hey, everybody. Today, I am so excited to be talking to Charlynda Scales, and she is a serial entrepreneur. She is so impressive and has done so many things. She's the founder and CEO of Mutt Sauce LLC and O Taste LLC, director of the O Taste Foundation, which is a 501c3, and creator of the Empower Collection. She is also the author of the brand new business empowerment book, Rock Bottom Has a Trampoline. I love that title, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Charlynda is a sought-after speaker and mentor for women's empowerment and small businesses and a TEDx speaker. Her talent is cultivating influential people by meeting them where they are in life and business. Her military career spans over 15 years, and she's currently an Air Force reservist stationed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Charlynda and Mutt Sauce have been featured in Yahoo Finance, NPR, Forbes.com, QVC, Men's Journal, CBS News, NBC Universal, Black Enterprise Magazine, and Military.com, among others. She was featured in FUBU founder and Shark Tank investor Damon John's best-selling book, Power Shift. Charlynda currently sits on the board of Bunker Labs, Arnold Air Society and Silver Wings, Dayton Chamber of Commerce, and Dayton Convention and Visitors Bureau. Charlynda is a Gold Award winner and has a lifetime membership to Girl Scouts of the USA. Her son, David, in her opinion, is her finest achievement. And I also want to share something about her book that she said. She said, my book, Rock Bottom Has a Trampoline, has launched on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Goodreads. Most books are written after the author has made it. They've already become a gazillionaire. They're famous and have a big house, and they're telling you how you can do it too. Me, right now, I am a proud thousandaire. I have debt. I drive a Honda, and I'm decidedly sharing my story. Although I'm a single mother, I take care of my parents. I have like 4 jobs, and I barely kept my business afloat during the pandemic. I want to reach you while I'm still on the grind, and I pray that my testimony helps you, because if I can save just one person, then my journey and pain have served their purpose. And I think that's so incredible. And you can learn more about Charlynda, Mutt Sauce, and her brand new book, Rock Bottom Has a Trampoline, at charlyndajean.com, muttsauce.com, and all over social media. And we will share all of those links in the notes so you can connect with Charlynda. So after that very impressive intro, Charlynda, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me.
I am just so glad to have you. And first off, congratulations on the amazing reception of your new book. That's so cool. It was like the number 3 new release in its category. Yeah. Maybe higher now. I don't know.
Well, it got to number 2, but I was still just like, I'm surprised it made the list. My imposter syndrome's still there.
I'm not. I love the title. The cover is really catchy, and we share a publisher. So we know we have an amazing publisher, W Brand Publishing. So they have done a great job. And obviously the content must be good for it to be ranking. So congratulations. And we will talk more about your book in just a sec. But first, would you give listeners a little bit of background about yourself as far as military life goes? And I mentioned that you were a reservist. So tell us about your military career so far.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm a country girl from Tennessee. And I was raised with my grandfather, who was a Korean Vietnam War veteran. So as far as my service, I'm actually a 4th generation veteran, first officer in my family, 2nd Air Force person next to my grandfather. And my family has served in every branch except for the Coast Guard and now the Space Force. But we still got a lot of little recruits we want to put in the game. So we'll see. Jury's still out on that one. But I admired my grandfather's service growing up. He was already retired, so I got a lot of the war stories growing up. And it just sounded so amazing, traveling the world. They lived in Japan. My mom grew up in Japan, Okinawa. And I wanted to get out of Tennessee. And I didn't know how I was going to do that. I was a jock in high school, so I thought it was going to be sports. I thought I was either going to play soccer or run track. And I eventually ran track, but I tore my ACL senior year. So the sports track was out, and this kid was filling out a reserve officer training corps college scholarship for military in a math class I wasn't paying attention to.
That's funny.
Like, oh my God, this is so hard. You had to like do extracurricular stuff. And I was a fully booked kid. I don't even remember a part of my life that my mom didn't have me doing something.
Kept you busy.
Yeah. So I filled it out, Jen, and walked down the hall, and I ran into my guidance counselor, and she's like, "What's that?" I said, "Some paper, some scholarship, whatever." I was really depressed, and I was not even planning for my future anymore.
Yeah.
She turned that thing in. She turned it in. And I did the scholarship interview, again, clueless, not realizing that it was a consideration for a full ride scholarship wherever I wanted to go. And that's how I ended up in the Air Force.
Kind of by accident, huh?
Yeah, but really by accident. But then when I saw how happy my grandfather was, like, he's not an emotional guy. Crying was not allowed in my family. So seeing him super emotional, I'm like, I'm going to do this for him. I'm going to go in. So I initially joined, 1, to pay for school, but then 2, to carry on that legacy. I was an acquisitions officer, which is a program manager in civil. And that's what I did, different platforms throughout the 15-year journey, but acquisition.
And I don't know if you could hear all of that noise just now. So we live near an Air Force base because, my husband was retired Air Force, and I can hear fighter jets flying overhead all of a sudden. So I was like, well, that is very appropriate.
You got good sound quality. That's good.
Thank you so much for your service. And I think it's incredible that you've continued the service in your family. I think it's almost like it becomes a family business. Our oldest son was active duty, is now a reservist. But when my husband retired, our son had just gone in, and we said, it's almost like we've kept the family business going.
Like hand the baton.
Yeah. We're doing our part for this country, I think, for sure. Well, tell us, how did you get into the world of entrepreneurship and about all your various business ventures? You are busy.
It's a lot. I'm blessed to be able to do it. I'm blessed to have the opportunities, I don't feel like a lot of them I've sought after, like, hey, let me go do this. But it's in the moment, it seemed like the right path to take. So I didn't come from, I wouldn't say that I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. My mother owned a daycare, so she was an entrepreneur. She had a really great childcare business. And I saw how hard it was. So I was like,
I never want to do that.
A lot of work. I'm going to do my 20 years in the military. I'll put my retiree hat on.
Yeah.
But while I was on active duty, I'd been on active duty for 8 years. And I was in my apartment at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And I told my mom, like, I'm eating this meal and it sucks. I don't know what is missing. But then I told her, like, the last time I had this sauce my grandfather made was so long ago. And he passed by this point. He actually passed a year after I commissioned in
Oh, wow.
he did my silver dollar salute. So he was the first person.
That's so special.
Yeah. I was like, if anything else happens in life, I had that moment, which was the icing on the cake for me.
Mm-hmm.
But now it came down to, he also was this sauce connoisseur.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. He made this sauce, and you could see pictures of, back when he was in service, even in Okinawa, there's a backyard barbecue with all these soldiers, and they're eating the barbecue with this sauce on it.
That's
And
awesome.
he would use it to break bread with people. His call sign in the military was Mutt. He was very adaptable. Everybody loved him. He was friends with everyone. And all of that. So you take all of that about him, and I'm eating this and I'm looking for this sauce. And instead of answering the question, my mom told me to come see her. When I went to see her, she handed me an envelope. She said, your grandfather asked me to give this to you before he passed away. And it was the original recipe to the sauce.
Oh,
and
wow.
now, Jen, he has 5 children that were still alive at the point. So I'm like, you skipped 5 kids. I'm the 3rd grandkid. The country kid hierarchy, I'm number 8.
Yeah.
So, insert imposter syndrome, the inner critic. Why me? This makes no sense that you gave this to me. I'm the worst cook in the family. And I'm active duty. So, I'm in the military. He at least knew at that point, I'm about to go into the military. That is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I tried to just override that, because at that moment, you're going to get a divergence of what you're comfortable with doing, and then the unknown. And the unknown was find someone who can mentor you. And I wanted to make a couple bottles with the recipe. My mentor from score.org, John Suter, he's like, no, this is going to be in grocery stores. This product is going to be retail. I see it in, country stores, farmers markets, you name it. I'm going to teach you how to manufacture it. And I was like, John, I'm active duty. He's like, we're going to find a manufacturer. You won't even have to do this. You won't even have to stir not one glass, not one jar. And I took my savings up until that point. I thought that making it in life was buying a BMW. So I had saved $25,000 to buy a BMW if I ever made major. That money is what I used to start Mutt Sauce LLC in his honor. The sauce with his face on every bottle.
I love that. He just saw something in you that you didn't even realize at that time.
It's humbling. And I have to say, with all the things that were on that, intro, it's just the humility. And he would say, humility will take you farther than money.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that made no sense when I was 6 years old. And he would say that, and I would remember it, but it was just, what does that mean? And it means a lot now, because when you look at the things that you accomplish, it's not because you're the richest person or anything like that. Sometimes gratitude and hard work and humility will get you through the door.
That is a great thing for him to tell you while you were growing up. Grandparents can have such an amazing impact, and we don't realize sometimes until we're older. I had a grandmother I was very close to, and there was little sayings she would say kind of like that. And I'd go, when you're 9, I'm like, whatever. And then, she passed away way too young. I was in my 20s and was not ready to lose her. And so there's little things she said all the time that just come back to me, and I've put them in my books and, let it live on, because it's just such great wisdom.
It is. And it's a blessing to even have those moments with them, look back fondly on it.
Well, speaking about your book, I love the cover. I love the title, Rock Bottom Has a Trampoline. I said, my daughter is 25, my youngest, and I said, listen to the title of this book. And she's like, that's awesome. I want to read that. I don't know. It's hopeful and realistic. So tell us about the premise of your book and how you came up with it and this amazing title. Basically, how did you decide to write this book?
Well, I didn't know I'd ever be an author.
A best-selling one.
Right. I knew back in 2017, I was honored to speak at Military Influencer Conference and finally tell part of my story. And what many people did not know at the time was that I had gone through a divorce, and I was very private. So many people were like, "You were married? Like, wait a
Really?
minute." Like,
Yeah.
I had compartmentalized so much by that point from my career, life, that getting the stage for 30 minutes felt so cathartic to just be like, and this happened, and this happened. And guess what else? I remember talking about Military Spouse magazine.
Yeah.
That was kind of what spurred the Rock Bottom Has a Trampoline, because I had a conversation with the editor, and I had just abruptly left my marriage, and I was sitting in this apartment with no furniture, and the editor called me and said, "We want you to be the cover story for Military Spouse magazine. It'll be all over the country." And I was sitting there like, "You've got to be kidding me," right?
Timing, right?
The timing of this. I am a failure, so I just like, I'm a failure. I am at rock bottom. This is not what needs to happen right now. And in a gentle way, she was so gracious about it. She said, "This is bigger than you." And I know in this moment, it's going to be hard to hear someone say that. You're very raw. The emotions are very raw, but it's bigger than you. And she painted the picture of how military spouses have been portrayed for a long time, especially in the media. She's like, you see mil spouse and you see the picture of them with the poster by the airport entrance and, waiting for the soldier to come home. And it's usually a woman. He said, but we're in a time where military spouses are men as well. The women are out there leading and deploying, and their husbands are at home and supporting them. And they're not just sitting around at home,
I don't know one military spouse that just sits around at home in 31 years of military life. Yeah.
Right. She's like, we have got to change the narrative.
Yeah.
I want to use a story where it changes the narrative. And I was a military spouse, but I was also a military veteran.
Right.
So, and I was a reservist. So I'm serving, I'm running a company, I'm doing almost more than he was doing.
Well,
and, and this story is not about, did you have dinner on the table by 7? It is about what you've accomplished. So, if you believe in something bigger than yourself. So what she sent out was, it's bigger than you. What I received in that moment was, if you believe in something bigger than yourself, rock bottom has a trampoline. And I'd heard this expression, rock bottom has a basement. I was like, how freaking depressing is that statement? There's no faith in that. There's no light tunnel in that quote. And I said, no, if you believe in something bigger than yourself, you will never really truly be at rock bottom. Rock bottom is not a place you go and stay. Rock bottom is a moment. And I want to help reframe this, because when I'm sitting in an apartment with no furniture, have left my marriage, I'm working at the headquarters of the Federal Aviation Administration full time just to pay the rent on the $2,000 empty apartment. And she's saying that you're going to bounce back from this. Just be honest, just be transparent, and don't give up. It was such a powerful moment for her. I don't know. It's probably just a regular conversation, but it changed me.
Oh, wow.
It changed me. And so when I told the story at a military influencer conference, that's when Brunella came up to me. Brunella helped me with this, which they call the collaborator on this book. And she said, you need to write this in full. And I wasn't ready. I told her, I was like, this is great. Thank you very much. We'll come back.
Good idea.
Great idea. Here's my card. Yeah. We exchanged cards and stuff, but she was very persistent, and things happen when it's supposed to happen, Jen.
Yeah.
So I think more life needed to be lived that is now in the book. And, I keep saying like more rock bottoms needed to happen that I was able to speak about, that were included in the book. But by the time Brunella got her hands on me, she's like, sit down.
Yeah.
What's happening now?
And Brunella is an incredible person. She's been on the podcast. Listeners will remember her name, Brunella Castagliola. I always try to say it correctly. And she's a ghostwriter and she owns the military editor agency. So that's who we're talking about. She is incredible. And we love Brunella. So much love for her.
Love her. But it was a very fast process. Once she sat down, she said, the story's in you. We just got to get your head focused on speaking and getting it out. I think the hardest part, and I don't know if this was the same way for you, but halting the story past whatever you're comfortable with saying, she wants you to go a little bit past that.
It's very vulnerable. And you just go, okay, I'm going to put this out there. And with my first book, I just remember the night before it was to publish, I thought, I'm going to pull it. I'm going to pull it because my husband was still active duty and I was sharing some pretty personal things, like you, just struggles in our marriage. And I was trying to be real about military spouse life, and I was real about it. But I don't think people understand, because once you put it out there, it's out there. You can't grab it back. And so I just really had to pray and be like, I know God wants me to do this. I'm going to just go forward with it. So I don't know if it was like that with you.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what Brunella said. She's like, once it goes on paper, you can never take this back.
No.
I'm like, I don't want to get sued. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to lose friends. I don't want to, but she said, you have to stop focusing on that part. You need to focus on someone who needs to hear your story. Literally, their story is dependent upon hearing your story.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Them breaking out of something, their rock bottom is to hear that they're not alone, that, the divorce and running a company, 10 years of infertility, being broke, seeing a negative balance, and you owe everybody in the world. And, people on social media think everything is perfect, being canceled on social media, all of those things. They need to know how did you make it past it? And don't wait until you're whatever your version of success is. Tell it now while you're in it.
We need more real and raw. And I think, like you said, if you just picture that one person that's either reading it or listening to this podcast, that's why I keep doing what I'm doing, because it's necessary. So for you, obviously, people spoke life into you. People spoke, hope and just things for you to grab a hold of and create these amazing things. And like your mentor and your grandfather and the editor, I think I know who she is, but just the fact that those people saw something and cultivated that in you, that's so incredible. And I see that you are doing that for others now.
It's a blessing to serve. And when it all comes down to it, when you look back on your life, everything was connected. Absolutely everything was connected. Where you're at now, you had to go through those things. And that's the other perception of rock bottom. Rock bottom is necessary. It's built who you are and your ability to help other people. You think of all the therapists, people who are counselors and mentors, they talk from experience. So the people telling you about overcoming addiction overcame addiction. And once you realize that, you'll have a little bit more patience for the rock bottom moments. We want to get out of it as quickly as possible. But what I found when I was in that apartment, it was about 4 months that I was there. And my mom said something very powerful to me one day, because I was in this mindset of like, I cannot go on another day. Like, this is the most awful existence. And I just can't make it to tomorrow. She said, I want you to do something for me. She said, I want you to go to your room and I want you to go to bed. Right now. If you want to take a hot shower and go to bed, I want you to go to bed. And I asked her, I said, why? I mean, it's like 7:00. I'm an insomniac. Why do I need to go to bed now? She said, because when you wake up tomorrow, I want you to wake up and realize how wrong you are. She said, you cannot go on till tomorrow. And you wake up tomorrow, that means you're supposed to be here. And you need to reflect on why something so powerful and bigger than you said you have to be part of tomorrow. and focus on that every single day. Why am I a part of today? Okay, I'm here. Let me be present. And just being present and trying to be present day after day, helped me get out of that funk.
I think that's so important. That's interesting because we've had some huge family issues the last couple of years. And so I have gone to therapy for the first time ever, which probably 20 years ago I could have really benefited from. But that's one of the big lessons she tells me: stay present, stop looking back, stop projecting ahead, worst case scenario. I was like, I've always had to project ahead for what's coming next. So staying present, I think that's such a powerful thing. And my goodness, your mom just realizing like sleep is so healing, just getting that fresh perspective and waking up and realizing I'm still here. There's still a purpose for me. That's amazing.
I told her, I was like, well, I thought she was going to give me a checklist. I thought she was
There's some things to
okay,
do. Right?
Yeah. I want you to do all this stuff. She's like, I want you to go to bed.
We love your mom. That's awesome. I'm so glad she did that.
I'm all about the healing power naps and like, just,
my goodness.
Today was too much. Okay. Well, then I guess I'm just going to go to sleep.
Yeah. Snacking the nap. That's sometimes that's all you need. Mm-hmm. Well, as far as your book goes, and, we're talking about rock bottom, and I think people, especially young people, don't realize that it's not going to be if, it's going to be when. Life is going to kick you in the teeth. And I'm not trying to be depressing, but you are going to hit hard patches. There's things you don't expect. Everybody is going to go through it if you're human and you live long enough. It's just a given. So as far as your book goes, who are you hoping to reach through it? What is the mission of it, do you feel like?
I feel like the mission is, I just want to reach one. Because there's one person out there who's struggling. I would say specifically an entrepreneur or someone thinking about going into business, and they have all these barriers up. I'm a mom, or I'm working full time, or I've already been through so much, or I don't know if I deserve good things because so many bad things have happened. You deserve all the things, everything that you need to get what you want. You were born with it. It's there. You just have to live life. You have to be patient with this path that you were given. Cultivate the patience. Realize the blessing in being able to talk about things in past tense. Because a lot of times they're like, oh, the trauma. I'm like, you're talking in past tense. How great is that?
Yeah.
That you're not in it anymore.
Oh, wow. That's so true.
Realizing that, and then realizing that there's so much more for you. Again, just you're here today. There's so much there for you. You're being given precious time. And knowing that if you ask for help, help will be given. That was the hardest thing for me to do. I really thought no one will help me if I ask for help. And they will. There's so many like-hearted people. Don't look for like-minded people. Look for like-hearted people. Like-minded people are like a self-licking ice cream cone. Tastes good? Yeah, it tastes great. But a like-hearted person can tell you with love, this is bigger than you. Just stop,
Take a nap.
Get over yourself.
Yeah, that's so
you got
good.
work to do.
Yeah.
And I hope that my book serves as a distant, like-hearted person saying, if you have this book in your hand, you are meant to do something great. You just needed to hear that somebody else has been through it, and you can do it too. Yeah, I'm hoping to reach the one. And if you're the one, oh my gosh, thank you. It's all worth it. We've been through, especially this younger generation, they've seen 9/11, they've seen the housing crisis, they've seen COVID. I mean, they've been through so much strife, and they haven't even hit 35, And I just think we owe it to them to give them grace and a handhold too. Like we made this.
Yeah.
The older generation, we made this, and it is our job to help you get through it.
Yeah. I love that. And you talked about your divorce, and in your book, you start with the story of your divorce. I haven't finished your book yet. I just got it this week, so I'm in the middle of reading it. But I thought that really struck me, talking about the vulnerability of writing and putting your life out there that you started your story with this vulnerable story about your divorce. And I think it's so important to be real, to be encouraging, to be positive without this toxic positivity where it's like, just put a happy face on and pretend, because that doesn't help anybody. So how did you overcome any nervousness or fear that you might have had about putting your story out there for readers and being so vulnerable with sharing so much of your life?
Every day that I met with Brunella, I was scared out of my mind. I probably texted her 100 times after we were done. And I was like, we should delete it. No, we should probably delete this. But again, she's a very like-hearted person who met me where I was at and said, I understand. This is very scary. Like, the scariest part of this entire story, we're just going to rip the Band-Aid off and we're going to tell it in chapter 1 and just get through it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more there. So we got to just get through this part. And I think for me, I did live in this scenario for years where there is the paper that says irreconcilable differences, and there's what I live and how to tell my story without disparaging another person. Like, actually leave room for, if this person ever wants to tell their version, go ahead. But I'm going to tell my story. I am going to tell my story. And because I don't want someone looking at me or our marriage and what I called keeping up with the Joneses. We were the Joneses. We're this powerful military couple on their way up. I remember he was promoted below the zone, on track to be something great. You know, as a professional, I have to say I had the biggest admiration for him. Like, he was my mentor at one point. Like, he was someone who mentored me as an acquisition person. But in anybody who's been married, you know, there's who you are at work and there's who you are at home. And I'm a different person at home than I am at work. He was a different person at home than he was at work. And we had to work through that dynamic of knowing the real deal. When I realized I was not okay with that, I'm not okay with this reality. It's not that I want some fairy tale, but I am working on making myself happy. My happiness is my job. It's an inside job, and I can't do it. Like, it is not, no matter what I'm doing, it's not improving. And, you know, I go into what would eventually happen that made me say, enough, I gotta go. I was afraid of who I would turn into if I stayed.
Wow. That's so powerful. Just the fact that you made these hard decisions, that you've been through these things. And then I just love that term, like-hearted versus like-minded, because, you know, if you're surrounded by people that are just going to tell you the same thing that you already think and don't challenge you, how do you ever grow? So I just thank you for sharing all of that. It's just so incredible. And I know that there's somebody out there listening that needs to hear all of this. I just know that. Yeah. Well, yeah. So Charlynda, since you have been so involved in entrepreneurship, and I know that some of your book is to encourage entrepreneurs and people in business, would you share some lessons and a few tips that you've learned along the way, especially at the beginning? And then maybe a few tips for somebody that's further along, that's kind of hitting that, you know, discouragement phase, or like, this is not worth it. So maybe some tips for people at the beginning and maybe mid to late career, because I think you've kind of covered all of that.
Yeah, well, I think in the beginning, I dealt a lot with, do I have what I need as far as like skills and experience to be an entrepreneur? Even being in the military and all the leadership that the military gives you, I hadn't quite internalized, like, how does that help me as an entrepreneur? And I felt unqualified. So the tip that I would tell you if you're starting out is, you don't have to feel qualified to be qualified to do this. Feeling qualified may never happen. You may just float through imposter syndrome the entire time.
Yeah.
But people who are doing a lot, sometimes what makes them stand out is they're just super confident. They're not confident. They're confident. And you just have to harness some of that confidence and say, I'm here. I have the vision. So if you can see it, that means that you've been given an opportunity to do it. And that's something that the people around you don't have. They don't have the vision. And the second thing to that is there are people who love you. Maybe they're your children, spouse, a boyfriend. You've decided to be an entrepreneur and you have this vision. They do not.
Right.
Not one day did they wake up and say, this is what I want to do. Oh my gosh. And they're writing it out on the whiteboard and they've made their vision board. No, there's none of that for them. What they have is love for you. So what you have to do is make sure that they feel appreciated on this journey. Because just like I would say in the military, I always look at a retirement ceremony, especially if they're colonels or above or chiefs and stuff, and they're giving their speeches. And what am I doing? I'm looking over at the spouses. Because
that's interesting.
Yeah. Sometimes it's this look of like, yay, we made it. Oh, we did it. And then sometimes it's just like, oh my God, I have to spend the rest of my life with this fool. Like,
I agree. And I was one of the spouses sitting beside my husband, and I saw those people fall apart right after retirement or during that transition. So that is a whole topic. Like,
yeah, where they have left them in the dust.
Yeah. And
years. And now they're collecting this prize of like, I made it as an entrepreneur. You want the people who supported you when you were a hot mess.
Yeah.
Want them to be happy for you. You don't want them to be resentful because you mistreated them or didn't spend quality time with. Make time for them. So I would say make time and over communicate, because you cannot. I don't subscribe to balance, Jen. So I think if you're paying attention to one thing, you're not paying attention to something else. If you're working on your business, you're not spending quality time with your family. So the best way to find your own balance in that is to communicate effectively. Guys, this is my day. Today's a little crazy because I have X, Y, and Z due. If you want me to explain that to you, I'll make time to explain why that's important. And then let's look at the calendar and see where we can spend some dedicated quality time together where I'm not checking my phone. I'm not looking at my laptop. There's no electronics. It's just us. And people forget how powerful it is just to do that.
Yeah.
Just to do that for them. Especially I'm learning now with my 3-year-old, you can be in the room and not be present. And they know it. So they know it immediately. And like one day, my son, he grabbed my phone because I was like, let me just answer this text message really quick from someone. And he grabbed my phone and he pulled it down and he said, Mommy.
He knows what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, we were supposed to be sitting there playing trucks. Like he loved. So, make time and over communicate. If you're later in your career as an entrepreneur, I would say don't get complacent. Just because you're at whatever level that you're at does not mean that something like the pandemic can't happen. And I've seen so many established businesses, especially in the food industry, where they'd been in business for 40 years, 50 years, and they didn't want to learn. They didn't want to innovate. They didn't want to find new ways. I was one of them. I was like, buys food online. Why do I need e-commerce? I'm not going to do it. It me so bad.
Oh, no.
Because I had my baby in March 2020.
Oh, gosh. The timing. Oh my goodness.
Like the best present ever.
Yeah.
He was born in March 2020, and then like that same week was when everything shut down.
Yeah. The world changed.
I didn't sell much sauce online. We sold at events and festivals and stuff like that, in-person stuff. And everything had been canceled with no refund. So I had zero projected revenue for the entire year for the business. I'm like, how do I do this? My parents have moved up to live with me. I'm the sole income for a house of 4. And that was a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And so I would say, 1, plan for worst case scenario, innovate, whatever the youngins are doing, pay attention. Because
I think you're a youngin.
I mean, I was on YouTube. I was YouTube University.
Yeah.
I learned on YouTube. Now I'm like, give me all the AI, all the artificial intelligence. I hear some of my colleagues are like, what is this? This is like a waste of time. Like, you have no idea.
I'm into it. I am into it too. You have to.
You have to.
You have to figure out how to, it's going to go forward, whether you go along for the ride or not. You're just going to get dropped off and left in the dust if you don't try to utilize it.
Get left behind.
I'm with you there. Yeah.
So always be a student. That's what I'd say to the experienced ones.
Yeah. You know, I just was reading this morning and I was going to go try to grab this quote and I'll just butcher it instead. It was a quote by Oscar Wilde and he said something basically like moderation is not, he didn't say it this way, like a joke, like it's not a real thing. Because if you're passionate, enthusiastic, you can't be moderate about it. You can't be moderate about your book. You can't be moderate about your business or your child. So it's like you said, you have this passion and drive and enthusiasm and it's going to all work out. It just may not all be at the same time. Like you can't do it all at the same time. You have to, like you said, create those times. Like guys, my family knows this. I am recording podcast interviews for a couple of days and you're just not going to see me, or I'm writing and I'll be out in 8 hours, you know, just that kind of thing. So I think that's so important. Like you also get time to pursue those passions and communication is so important. And I love that you said that about communicating and expressing appreciation for the people in your life and don't just shut them out.
Well, when they have a vested interest, it's almost like getting the buy-in on your job. Like, if you want to do something, you have an idea, the best way to get support is to stop and explain how this is a win for everyone.
Right.
You know, how is it a win to create something that could be passive income for everyone? Because if I break my leg tomorrow, or if I can't go to a speaking event because a couple weeks ago I lost my voice, and I was panicking. I'm like, oh my God, there was so much stuff I had to record and I can't speak. So when you explain it to them, then they understand why it's beneficial to them. And then it becomes a team thing. And even, you know, my mom watching my son, she now knows I'm doing my part.
Yeah.
I'm helping the team.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I could talk to you all day and I know we're kind of getting to the end of our interview. So before we close, Charlynda, I just think you have wisdom beyond your years. I got to see Charlynda speak at Military Influencer Conference a few years ago. I was just so impressed. And so I don't think I ever thought I'd be talking to you, and I'm just honored and having so much fun talking to you.
Yeah, you're the best.
Oh, well, I just think there's so many great lessons you've already shared. And I know that people are going to find amazing lessons in your book. So can you share just one or two of the most important takeaways? You've kind of already alluded to some of it, but what is it you really hope people walk away from your book knowing and getting, you know, affirmed in them?
Yeah. Well, rock bottom is a moment and one that you're supposed to learn something. So take the time to learn what rock bottom is trying to teach you, and know that there are people who care about you. And you might just need to sit down and reflect on how much love that you have received along the way, through all the rock bottoms. Everything is connected. Everything is connected for a good reason. And you're meant to do great things. And it doesn't have to be change the world. Sometimes maybe your purpose is to reach out to one person. All the things you were meant to do is because one person's waiting to hear your story of how you made it through all of that. So tell your story.
Yeah, I agree. And just like you said before, the saying your grandfather said to you that stuck with you, and the things your mom said to you, just you can be, that's important in a child's life or somebody else's life. You just never know the impact you're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Charlynda, what is coming up for you next? Do you have any speaking engagements? I mean, you have this book, so I know that you're trying to get the word out about that, but tell us what's coming next for you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I don't know how you do this, Jen. This is a new territory for me. You know, you've been an author for a minute. So I'm going to Military Influencer Conference. So I missed it last year. Unfortunately, my son had caught COVID 5 days before the conference, and he had a seizure, and he'd never been sick before in his life. So it was pretty scary.
Yeah.
This year I'm going back as a speaker / cheerleader, because there's so many people that I have watched them on social media, watched their rise. like Haley from Torch Warrior Wear, Air Force veteran, and she has this line of clothing that is really great for women. Almost like I would say Skims, but better.
Yeah.
She's going to be there. People like her, and supporting Cortez again. He's been doing this for so many years. And I have Tucson. So we're going to the book festival in Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, I will meet you there then, because I'm going to that too.
Yeah. And there's some stuff lined up in 2024 I'm very excited about.
Good.
I just came back from Black Entrepreneurs Day, where I was able to give Damon John a copy of my book.
Oh, cool.
That was surreal. Yeah, that's a whole other thing, but he's always been supportive of me, and I felt just wildly undeserving. I was like, who am I? I'm like, he's a celebrity. I just really was grateful that beyond the time that I'd had with him in the Bob Evans contest, he'd been supporting behind the scenes journey. So
that's incredible.
It's all, I don't know what else is in store, but I have to say I'm ready. I got a great team here at my house and tackle whatever it is.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm not going to make it to Military Influencer this year. Unfortunately, I've gone several times, but it'll probably have happened already by the time this episode comes out, but that's in Las Vegas this year, right? Yeah. So maybe next year, but I will see you at that book conference. That'll be fun. Book festival. Yeah. Well, it has just been so incredible talking to you, Charlynda. And I just think, if you look at you on social media, it seems like, wow, she's beautiful. She's smart. She's got it all together. She's a veteran. She's a businesswoman. And I think, like you said, sometimes you see things on social media. It's not the full picture. And so to hear where you've been and the struggles you've had, I just truly think people are going to resonate with that and honestly just relate to that so much.
I hope so. Just save one.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. And listeners, remember, connect with Charlynda at charlyndajean.com, muttsauce.com. Can you find that in stores right now?
Online.
Yay! So you can just go order yourself some right now and all over social media. And so remember, my friends, you are brave, you are strong, and you've got this. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for listening to the MilSpouse Matters podcast. You can connect with me at jen-mcdonald.com or on social media as @MilSpouseMatters. You can find even more military life support with my books, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse, and MilSpouse Matters, Sharing Strength Through Our Stories, as well as my other podcast, The Christian MilSpouse. Love the show? Please subscribe and leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening, and then share it with someone else who could use it too. Until next time, have a great week.